Recollections of a Soldier invites you to continue following Part 2 of the soldier's memoir by People's Armed Forces hero Lieutenant General Triu Xunha in March of 1975. Before we step back into the smoke and fire of the battlefield to relive these unforgettable memories, please take a moment to subscribe and turn on notifications. Your support helps ensure that the sacrifices and the youth of these soldiers are never forgotten. Now let's return to the front lines. The general offensive and uprising across the south entered a decisive phase. Reconnaissance Battalion 47 was ordered to reinforce the units of Unit 232. Unit 232 was established in early February of 1975. The unit's initial organization included Division 5, Division 3, Regiment 16 Artillery Armored Vehicles, Communication Engineering Special Forces, and the command headquarters. The unit command included Major General Ngai N. Mine HU, also known as NM Inga Commander, Colonel Tiren VN PHC, also known as TM Turan the Political Commissar, Colonel B.I. Thanfian, also known as TLM the Deputy Commander, and Colonel Turin V. Ni Naiyan the Deputy Commander. Immediately after its establishment, Unit 232 urgently consolidated its organization and simultaneously implemented its mission to open a corridor on the southwest direction of Saigon, attacking the enemy from TU-9 down to KNT, gaining control of the area west of the VMC River, creating a ready stance to attack Tiananmen and cutting off National Highway 4, which is now National Highway 1 connecting Ho Chi Minh City to the southwest region. Regiment 16, coordinating with Division 9, attacked the Du Tieng subsector, completely liberating the Du Tieng area. Following that, they seized the Suiang Heng Cuhi and Truong DNXC bases. In the South Division, 3 and Division 5 coordinated with local armed forces to attack enemy bases from BNC UMCU, BIQO Base CHA, down to Tui NHN, BNA 10 NH, then H pressuring MCHA, and opening a corridor from TI-9 down to Kian TNT. Leaving the BN Mountain Base, I returned to my position as the map officer of the battalion. The battalion marched down to Kien Tieng Longan. Kien Tieng is a riverine province in the Mekong Delta region, famously known as the NATPMI Plain of Reeds Resistance Base during the war against the French. In February of 1975, I accompanied Battalion Commander Tiran H. High PHA and an HXUNTH platoon leader of Company 3 to conduct reconnaissance and monitor the enemy at the Benen Cu outpost Quéo Ba subsector and Torqueo subsector. With the help of the cadres and the CHA district unit, our task force quickly grasped the enemy situation, including their numbers, operation patterns, and the layout of their bases in CHA and CU. Discovering that the Liberation Army was concentrating and pressuring the border, the ARVN Army of the Republic of Vietnam deployed Division 3 and armored forces to establish a blocking line from HNGN to MCHA and CU, while simultaneously reinforcing the defensive line from MCHA to the AA and TNN. Given this situation, Unit 232 coordinated with the Armed Forces of Military Region 9 Kien Tieng Province and Longan Province to execute a high-point campaign, attacking and expanding the liberated zone. Reconnaissance teams of Battalion 47 led forces from Division 5 and Regiment 271 to attack and gain control of the Turqueo subsector, eliminating and dissolving 1 territorial defense company and 1 civil defense platoon. From March 12th to March 20th, the CHA and CU armed forces continued to coordinate with the main forces to attack the RHTRMG, NGI, BNMI, and Quéo Ba outposts, mobilizing the populace to rise up and force the withdrawal of a series of civil defense posts in the CHAQ area and the communes located west of the VA and BNLC districts, liberating more than 10,000 people. One day, while I was with Battalion Commander Turan H. High PHA at the CHA district unit's base, which was then located in CU district, we were hit by enemy artillery fire. I and another local force soldier lost our Biang backpack, the cotton-stuffed backpack. I only had the clothes I was wearing, and a canvas hammock tied to my waist. That evening, when it was time to sleep, I told Anjba Fong, the deputy political officer and district unit assistant, I have nothing left. All my gear is gone. But Fong said, come sleep inside the mosquito net with me, saying that he spread a mat woven from water hyacinths right on the canal bank. An Bafang's single mosquito net was too small and there were countless mosquitoes. He said, "Let the mosquitoes be. We'll pull up our shirts to expose our bellies. When they swarm in to bite, we'll just clap and kill them, my friend." Following his advice, I pulled up my shirt to slap mosquitoes, laughing while I did it. Later, I had the chance to meet Ainch Fong again. He had become the CHU District Unit Commander, then retired having completed his mission in CHA and CHU. On March 29th, I was transferred by the battalion command to work as a map officer in the Deep Penetration Unit commanded by Deputy Battalion Commander LVN XUN. On LVN XUN's real name was LVNC. He was from GC Eng. After the liberation, he transferred to work at the Vietnam Maritime Bureau. Our deep penetration unit at that time consisted of a reconnaissance team of more than 10 people, a 15-watt radio team including a wireless operator, and a cipher officer, a map team, and a liaison officer totaling nearly 20 cadres and soldiers, led by platoon leader XUNT. We were tasked with urgently going to the BNHAH area to monitor the enemy activities along Road 4, the section from BNHH to BNLC. On the afternoon of March 30th, 1975, we secretly marched across the VMCN River to VNCMBA-VMBV, and from there approached the edge of Saigon TNBU Commune BEUB, each DH district. From TNBU, the reconnaissance force divided into 3 teams to monitor the enemy's movement and activity in 3 assigned areas. Every day we would advance to set up an observation post about 500 meters from Road 4, monitoring the enemy's movement from Saigon to the Mekong Delta and vice versa. We would radio back to the command headquarters every 3 hours. While operating in deep penetration, we almost entirely relied on the people, the revolutionary bases, and the local armed forces to sustain our mission. The cadres from the provincial and district units acted as guides, informed us about the local situation, and directly led us to the bases to buy food supplies and water. I clearly remember the TNBU commune guerrilla team. Whenever our unit requested anything, no matter how small, the team members were always ready to help. We'd be walking and the enemy would fire randomly, making us feel exposed. The enemy kept firing, but the guerrillas kept leading the way, introducing us to the names of the places as we went. We realized that if a guerrilla was killed in combat, we would be completely lost because only the team leader had the map. I also remember that when we were in TNBU, the person who accompanied our reconnaissance team was named SAC. He was small, carrying a carbine rifle that was longer than he was, and on top of that, he asked me for a grenade to hang swinging at his hip. Young as he was, SAC was a seasoned veteran of the battlefield, leading me many times to meet local families to buy rice and supplies. Some bases were only about 500 meters from the RHRH outpost of the security forces. The hardest thing during our time in TNBU was the lack of fresh water. The water there was brackish, unsuitable for bathing or washing, let alone drinking. We had to buy fresh drinking water, which cost 20 NE a gallon, a 20-liter container at the time. Rice cost 6,000 to 7,000 NE a bag, with one bag being about 20 to 22 kilograms. Walking about 500 meters past the RHRH watchtower led into the hamlet, which meant entering our own base, a local family's house. One day we went to the house of Mhia base for the commune guerrillas. Mihai asked, "Can you boys eat bean sprouts yesterday? The family had an anniversary feast and they made BHXO Vietnamese savory pancakes with bean sprouts." I said we can eat them. That was the first time I had ever tasted BHXO. After taking the rice and paying, M refused to take the money. She also refused to take the 20 yen for the gallon of water. We had to wrap both the rice and the water in our shirts and carry them out secretly so others wouldn't know. Once we slept at a base house in TNBU with Deputy Battalion Commander LVNXUN, myself, and the liaison soldier, Guy NVNVIY. The base house had a large wooden bed where Unchbay XUN slept, while the I and I hung our hammocks outside on the porch. That day, Division 22 of the Saigon Army, having been hit somewhere in BNH, rushed into the area. Early in the morning, the 3 girls of the house woke us up yelling, "Get up immediately, the enemy troops are here." I looked out and saw enemy soldiers milling about only a few hundred meters from where we were. I quickly told Unchba XUN, "You run first to the lone tree and wait for me there. I will cover you." Only after Unchba XUN had disappeared behind the cluster of water hyacinths did I run towards the canal. The enemy spotted a person running towards the canal bank and immediately fired an M79 after me. I was hit by a shrapnel in my leg. Fortunately, the fragment was small and didn't penetrate deep. He also ran in the direction and Bà Xun had gone and followed the canal bank back to meet us at the designated lone tree. We waited until the enemy had left the hamlet before returning to the observation post. After more than half a month of arduous deep penetration duty day and night, clinging to the enemy, the deep penetration reconnaissance teams successfully completed their assigned mission. I was personally commended by Deputy Battalion Commander Xun, who recommended me for party admission. With the major victories in the Central Highlands, the Central Coastal Region and PHC Long on April 8th, the Campaign Command for the Liberation of Saigon GNH was established. On April 14th, it was named the HH Mine Campaign, commanded by General VNTNDNG. Implementing the Central Committee's intention, the Regional Command directed the reorganization of the main forces' newly established Special Forces Division to and transferred the logistics units that had been supporting the regional and corps campaigns to serve the 5 main corps of the campaign. The B-2 Armed Forces Command began to execute strategic division strikes. Corps 4 attacked the ARV in Division 18 base at XUNLC. The armed forces in the Mekong Delta approached Road 4C in the city Va Nong Town and all provincial and district capitals. The entire armed force of Saigon GNH City occupied the jumping-off positions close to the inner city ready for the uprising in Saigon. One day, Deputy Battalion Commander LVNXU told us to prepare to buy ARVN uniforms to disguise ourselves for a deep penetration mission into Saigon. He had just finished speaking when a message from higher command arrived announcing that our forces were attacking Saigon and the HH Min campaign had begun. That was April 26, 1975. On the night of April 27th, we intended to cross Road 4 in the Ang Than H direction and set up an observation post from the south, but our source reported that ARVN soldiers retreating from the central region were in that area. So we moved north of the road to west of Bến Hin Bridge and then positioned ourselves near the RHRA&C Canal Bank. We were not part of the Army wing advancing into inner Saigon, but were tasked with supporting the campaign setting up an observation post at an unnamed canal near Bến Hin Bridge. Here we continued our mission of monitoring enemy activities and the movement of Saigon Army units on National Highway 4. On the morning of May 30th, 1975, National Highway 4 was completely blocked and cut off. DKP rockets and Division 5's 105mm artillery of Unit 232 continued to fire on enemy positions. At around 10 a.m. we were informed by the battalion command that our forces were advancing like a storm into Saigon. South Vietnamese President Dien Bien Minh was calling on soldiers to cease fire at their positions and await disarmament. XUN said victory is very near, comrades. Try to fulfill the mission assigned by the High Command. Around 12 p.m. we were informed that Dien Bien Minh had announced his surrender and Saigon City was completely liberated. None of us dared to shout, but we hugged each other, gripping shoulders and ribs hard. The joy was not a surprise, but it was immense. No one said it aloud, but I knew each person was suppressing emotions and harboring different plans. The South was completely liberated, but the vestiges of the old regime remained heavy. Besides some high-ranking generals and government officials who had fled abroad, the majority remained. In the provinces of East and South Vietnam, there were still about 500,000 civilian personnel and soldiers, including a significant number of stubborn elements attempting to resist the revolution. Most officers and soldiers felt uneasy with the new regime. The economy remained backward and agricultural, developing unevenly and heavily dependent on foreign aid. Social vices such as drug use, hooliganism, prostitution, and gambling were rampant. In the Saigon GNH area alone, the most populous city in the country at that time, with nearly 3.5 million people, there were over 20,000 enemy troops in hiding, seeking every way to oppose the revolutionary government, plus a heavy social burden of about 27,000. Illiterate people, over 1 million unemployed people, more than 20,000 orphans, 23,000 widows, thousands of beggars. More than 30,000 people suffering from venereal disease, 15,000 street children, and 10,000 drug addicts. Reconnaissance Battalion 47's mission was to continue deploying enemy intelligence work to serve the regional command in directing the armed forces of southern Vietnam and the extreme south-central region to carry out military governance, protect the revolutionary achievements, overcome the consequences of the war, rebuild and reorganize the army to suit peacetime conditions, and conduct combat readiness training. We stayed at Binh Bridge until the afternoon of April 30th, when we were ordered to move to the Jaya APLM station, then transferred to CU Tree in District 11 and continued the mission of reconnaissance and monitoring enemy remnants in the area. My team, about 7 or 8 people, stayed with Deputy Battalion Commander LVN Xuan in an ice factory. The ice factory owner offered to provide meals for the entire reconnaissance team. He had a female helper called HT, a native of Ti Ninh. She asked us what time do the liberation troops eat. I replied 6:30 a.m. for breakfast, 11 a.m. for lunch, and 6:30 p.m. for dinner. So every day she cooked at those exact times and invited us to eat. After settling down, Xuan gathered everyone to thoroughly explain the regulations for quartering in civilian homes. He summarized the country as at peace. We are the victors and must demonstrate the qualities of revolutionary soldiers, effectively carrying out mass mobilization work. This area is newly liberated, so the political security issue is still very complex. We must be highly vigilant, protect the area with the local people, and not allow the enemy's Thienengay swans and Pheng Ho and phoenixes to entice and lure us. In the ice factory owner's house, we saw many things we didn't know the purpose of, which sometimes made us vigilant. There was an ashtray that none of us knew what it was. Everyone was curious but didn't dare to ask until we saw the owner smoke tap the ash and stubbed the butt into it with a fizzing sound. Then we knew. After 1 week of serving to protect and build the revolutionary government in District 11, our deep penetration reconnaissance team was ordered to move back to the battalion's formation, which was then stationed in Binh Thi Commune Cha District, Long An Province. Here, Reconnaissance Battalion 47 under the Military Regions Intelligence Department stabilized its organization in the new situation. In mid-July of 1976, HTN informed me that the higher command had granted me leave to visit my family. The battalion gave me an additional 10 days of leave to deliver files of fallen soldiers to the districts of VHPH province, which was then a merger of VNHPHC and PH provinces, and HBC province, a merger of BC9 and BC Jiang provinces in early October of 1976. I returned to the unit, reporting back on time. At that time, Reconnaissance Battalion 47 had been transferred to Military Region 7 since early 1976. After a period of performing military governance post-war, the regional command directed the B-2 armed forces to reorganize the forces and the military organization of the territory following Resolution 24 of the Party Central Committee, third term, September of 1975. Also during this time on the Vietnam-Cambodia border, Pol Pot's army was constantly provoking conflicts. They caused several clashes and territorial disputes in the communes of Ti Ninh province. Battalion 47 had to disperse its forces to gather intelligence, both inland and along the border, while also undertaking production assignments. Company 3 went to the KNHIHC area of NDPMI to grow rice. Company 1 was assigned to Gia KMT and Pheng Nai. Company 2 and the battalion headquarters engaged in production at CBCMM commune. When the unit's organization was restructured, political officer TNXEM appointed me as the battalion political assistant, replacing Anchen G. Mine B.I., who was transferred to be the political officer of Company 3. Due to the increasingly tense situation on the Vietnam-Cambodia border, on June 4, 1977, after urgently reorganizing and restructuring the 3 companies, Battalion 47 was ordered to deploy a detachment to the border to monitor the activities of the Pol Pot Army. The battalion headquarters moved from District 8 Ho Chi Minh City up to Ti the H Commune T NBAN District Ti 9 Province. To monitor the border situation, the battalion organized 3 reconnaissance teams, 1 team stationed at Tia Eng Rai C Post, 1 team at P, and 1 team monitoring the enemy at Sam MT border gate. I remember at that time the Sam MT post had comrades like the Binh Lu En Mind Tir En and are performing reconnaissance duties. The teams could not avoid daily skirmishes with the Pol Pot army. On June 16, 1977, Pol Pot soldiers infiltrated across the border and planted mines at PA. Sergeant LVNSN stepped on a mine and was killed. He was the first fallen soldier of Reconnaissance Battalion 47 in the Southwestern Border War. His comrades brought Arne Sen's body back for burial at the GDU District Cemetery in Thi Ninh Province. On the night of the 24th early morning of September 25, 1977, the Khmer Rouge Army mobilized Division 3 and Division 4-2 regiments and 7 local battalions to simultaneously launch a surprise attack on many points along the border in the 3 districts of Tien Bien Bien Cu and Huath in Thi Ninh Province. They brutally massacred hundreds of civilians, burned many houses, schools and hospitals, and looted much of the people's property. They deployed troops to besiege the SAM-MT border post and attacked many of our posts along the border. Exercising the legitimate right to self-defense and obeying the higher command's order, the armed forces of Military Region 7 marched to the border to fight against the invaders. On September 26, 1977, the command of Military Region 7 established the Military Region Forward Command Post, led by Major General Ngai N. Minch HU, Deputy Commander of the Military Region. The command post was then stationed at this NNGN DNBN district, Thi Ninh Province. The Military Region deployed Infantry Division 5 along with various branch units such as artillery, anti-aircraft guns and motorized vehicles to Thi Ninh. Our Reconnaissance Battalion 47 was ordered to urgently supplement its personnel, conduct technical and tactical training, and organize reconnaissance sub-teams to monitor the enemy and prepare the battlefield for the forces of Military Region 7 to attack the enemy. At 5:30 a.m. on September 29, 1977, our forces launched an attack, pushing the Pol Pot troops out of the SAM-MT area, the International Committee House area, and the P area. The battle lasted fiercely from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Our forces fiercely attacked the enemy's fortified clusters in the Bay Sun Junction area, then concentrated on fighting the enemy in the southeast and northwest of the SAM-MT outpost. Reconnaissance Battalion 47 at that time served as the guide for the combat units. RNV from HNAM and HPAC from Ninh Binh were serving on the attack direction of Regiment 1. When they reached the SAM-MT outpost, an enemy cluster to the south of the outpost spotted them. They immediately fired DKZ and mortars intensely. A tank was damaged and many cadres and soldiers of the regiment were wounded, including HV and HPHC. Hearing the reports of casualties at the front, I requested permission from the battalion command to go and retrieve the wounded comrades. When our vehicle was still about 600 to 700 meters from the outpost, it stopped. I ran with 2 soldiers to the scene. Anvi was wounded in the abdomen, bleeding heavily. Anshi was wounded in the eye. I helped Anshi onto my shoulder, and Anshi was also carried by comrades. We quickly brought them to the vehicle to be transported to the TNBN District Hospital for timely treatment. Both comrades survived the critical moment. From October 4th to October 6th, 1977, the Armed Forces of Military Region 7 Corps 4 and Corps 3 organized an attack, pushing the enemy out of the BUABU from XOI and LI areas about 4 kilometers northeast of SAM-MT. However, the military situation on the Thi Ninh border remained tense. On the TNBN front, the Pol Pot forces continued to launch attacks to seize Tuang Rai CKHT, TNNT-TT and TNNG. At Tuang Rai C, they used a battalion to seize Height 62, Height 74, and Area 24. On the BNCU front, they attacked and seized many positions at CIMB in Torai and CUD CMC in Long H&H Commune. Given this situation, the Military Region 7 Command directed the adjustment of forces, transferring Regiment 16 of the Layan Unit back to Division 5's formation, reinforcing Division 5 with Regiment 1 of the Giant H City Unit, and returning Regiment 1 of Division 9 to Corps 4. The TNBN District Thi Ninh area was assigned to Corps 3. To effectively carry out reconnaissance and intelligence gathering to serve the forward command post in directing combat, the Military Region staff ordered the urgent consolidation of Reconnaissance Battalion 47, as some experienced cadres had transferred to other sectors or been discharged. The total personnel of the battalion at that time was only over 100 people. The Battalion Party Committee decided to prioritize building Company 1 into a strong main force unit, after which they would receive more troops and gradually consolidate the remaining companies. while organizing and consolidating the battalion, simultaneously deployed the mission of monitoring the enemy to serve the military region forward command post and the combat units, specifically guiding Regiment 429 to conduct deep reconnaissance behind the enemy lines on Road 7 to attack the enemy, and guiding Division 5 to fight the enemy on the LI line height 62, and surveying the terrain to prepare the battlefield for Military Region 7's counterattack. In mid-November of 1977, the battalion deployed 2 more observation posts to monitor the enemy on the borderline at Seatoom and Bridge 17, coordinating with the campaign's intelligence clusters along the border to determine the enemy's force deployment formation tactics, and intentions reporting directly to the Military Region Forward Intelligence Department. One afternoon in early October of 1977, Battalion Commander TNHIPHA and HNMHA called me into his office. He announced the decision of the Battalion Party Committee to build Company 1 into a strong main force unit, and then he immediately said the battalion assigns you the position of Deputy Commander of Company 1. Onion HA only said this verbally. There was no written decision. After he finished, I promised to strive to work with the Company 1 command to build the unit and effectively carry out the assigned mission. The next morning, I handed over my duties as political assistant to an NTNMeng and reported to Company 1 at a time when our forces had essentially pushed the enemy out of the southwestern border area, driving the Khmer Rouge army back to their own territory and creating conditions for the army and people of the border provinces to consolidate the defense system. From October 23rd to October 31st, 1977, the forward command post of the General Staff decided to launch a counter-offensive campaign along the entire border. The participating forces included 4 divisions: Infantry Division 5 of Military Region 7, Division 9 of Military Region 4, and Division 10 of Corps 3. In early 1978, Political Officer Hoing C.K. went off to study, and I was assigned to take charge of the company's political work. After the company commander Hoang Tien NGP was wounded, I was appointed acting company commander. Ongai NVNSN became the political officer, and Angel Ng became the deputy company commander. At that time, the enemy was heavily entrenched along Road 7. Many times our units organized reconnaissance but failed. Given this situation, the higher command ordered Reconnaissance Battalion 47 to directly organize forces to monitor the enemy in this area. According to the plan, the battalion command would stop about 3 kilometers from LI to establish a foothold. LI, also known as the B Road, officially called the TINL-XUN Road, runs parallel to the Vietnam-Cambodia border from Sam MT to Seatom, about 2 to 5 kilometers away. I commanded the reconnaissance section to continue deep penetration to monitor the enemy from the east of Height 62 to the Phama base. Accompanying me were Lueng Trong Gai NT Ntao ND and Trong Vanai and INVNT. We crossed LI, cut through the forest veering to the east, and entered the Phum area. About 500 to 600 meters from the Phum, we detected the enemy. For 2 days and nights of covert reconnaissance, we identified the targets and drew diagrams. We returned to the foothold position. After receiving the reconnaissance results, HNMHA ordered the formation to withdraw to complete the report for the Military Region Command. On the way back, Deputy Company Commander LNN, who was leading the formation, accidentally strayed into the position of a reconnaissance unit of Infantry Division 5. The Infantry Division 5 reconnaissance comrades wore black B-Bay clothes and checked scarves, looking very similar to the Pol Pot army. EN spotted a gun barrel poking out and immediately fired. The Division 5 reconnaissance team fired back, and Tureng was hit in the head and fell on the spot. Our reconnaissance team lay still, not hearing any more shots from the opposite side. I yelled loudly, "We are Vietnamese soldiers." The other side responded with the correct password, confirming they were our forces. I sprang up and saw Tieng carrying the H on his shoulder. After a short distance, he tripped over a tree root and fell. I ran over and carried the H. Gai En Trung then had died. His blood soaked my shoulder. His sacrifice was truly painful. Upon returning to the unit, Battalion Commander TNHIPHA organized a meeting to draw lessons from the cross-country reconnaissance work. The conference clearly analyzed that the Pol Pot soldiers were very cunning. They often planted mines on trails and set up ambushes, clinging to us and attacking when we were careless. Therefore, when conducting reconnaissance, the soldiers must be extremely cautious in approaching enemy positions. They must not follow trails but use the compass to cut bearings to approach the target, being careful to thoroughly erase all tracks to prevent the enemy from detecting and pursuing them. When cutting bearings, it is also necessary to clearly understand the positions of our friendly units, observe cautiously even when entering an area already under our control. After this conference, the comrades in Company 1 strictly followed the guidelines. When Company 1 organized reconnaissance to support the Division 5 Command in the counterattack campaign to push the enemy deep back into Cambodian territory, I personally commanded the unit leading Regiment 4 Commander Hugh V, Nenbi Regiment 174 Commander Nai NH Ne Peace, and other staff officers of the division to the field. Reconnaissance of Infantry Division 5 led by NDAA accompanied us. The formation was large and had many components, making it easy to be exposed. I suggested to HTB and MPAC that they thoroughly brief the members of the delegation to strictly comply with the reconnaissance unit's regulations, carry light equipment to ensure easy maneuverability. Following the old method, we cut bearings, avoided enemy outposts, and penetrated deep into the southeast and southwest about 600 meters from Phum A. I signaled the lead team to secretly crawl to the edge of the clearing to observe. A moment later, the team returned reporting that they saw people and buffaloes in the field. I decided to secretly conceal the formation and wait for the people and buffaloes to return to the Phum before attempting to approach the target. The sections secretly dispersed and concealed the formation, waiting for dark to approach the enemy base. A little after 5 p.m., the security team reported that all the people and buffaloes had returned to the Phum. I suggested that all sections immediately and thoroughly erase all tracks at the hidden position and approach the target. The team successfully led Regiment 4 Commander Regiment 174 Commander and the battalion cadres close to the Phum, a base ensuring safety and secrecy. We successfully completed our mission in the counterattack campaign, perhaps because we strictly followed the procedures for approaching and monitoring the enemy, and were good at cutting through the forest and remembering the routes. Our unit often completed its mission successfully and safely. Just in December of 1977, the 47th Battalion sent out 3 reconnaissance teams, and 2 teams had to return because they encountered the enemy. Only Company 1 successfully tracked and monitored the target as required by the higher command. In late December of 1977, we supported Division 5 and the GA Regiment in launching an attack against the Pol Pot forces encroaching in the south and north of the LXUN Road 7 and eliminating their outposts located south of Road 7 at L24 height. 62 and Phum Ma. Company 1 was assigned the mission to monitor the enemy in the Memos East area for the GINH Regiment to attack up to Snool. The mission to monitor the enemy at Memos was very urgent, with no time to follow the phased procedure as in theory. I met Ancheng Gai NVNI, the reconnaissance chief of the GINH Regiment. He proposed that Company 1 would set off together with the GINH Regiment's reconnaissance unit. Company 1 would go on the left and the GINA Regiment's reconnaissance would go on the right. The reconnaissance forces would go ahead with the main regiment advancing right behind. When the enemy was detected, the reconnaissance teams would immediately report so the regiment could immediately deploy forces to engage the enemy. GINH Regiment Commander TNNC KM agreed with the plan. We organized the force to follow the enemy carrying B-40 and M79 guns. When we passed Cache and approached Phum Cannon and Phum Karam, both reconnaissance units detected the enemy. The enemy also spotted us. The GINH Regiment's reconnaissance unit immediately opened fire first. Company 1 followed suit. After about 15 minutes of exchange, the enemy fled headlong. We pursued and killed 5 more enemy soldiers and captured 5 weapons. The GINH Regiment's forces advancing from behind also surged forward and captured Memos ahead of the prescribed time. After the battle, Company 1 and I were nominated for a 3rd-class Feat of Arms medal. In early 1978, I received a decision appointing me as Company 1 commander. Before that, I had received a telegram from my cousin Ng, who was teaching in Hue, informing me that my wife had given birth to a boy in June of 1977. Hea named our son Trai Uvt Quang with the wish that when he grew up he would be intelligent and bright. I wrote a letter congratulating the mother and son, informing HA about my appointment as company commander and encouraging her, promising to arrange a visit to see them and the family. At that time, I did not think that the promise would take more than 4 years to fulfill. At the end of the road, 7 counterattack campaign, my unit was ordered to withdraw to the base in TNLP Commune TI-9. Here, the company deployed its forces to track and monitor the enemy, establish outposts and observation posts, conduct deep penetration reconnaissance, set up ambushes to capture prisoners of war, to serve Division 302's defensive combat along the borderline from Samhaiti border gate to the Kennedy Nose, and conduct reconnaissance training for the new recruits drafted in late 1977 for various divisions. Around the same time, through interrogating cadres from the Khmer Rouge army who had defected to Vietnam and information from Cambodian people who had fled to Vietnam for refuge, the military region's intelligence department learned that there were legitimate forces rising up within Cambodia to resist the genocidal Pol Pot reactionary regime. They urgently needed assistance and support from Vietnam. Identifying this as an opportunity to build forces inside Cambodia against the Pol Pot regime, the military region commander directed the intelligence department to develop a plan to send deep penetration reconnaissance teams to link up with the Khmer Rouge defectors to help them build and develop their forces to restart the revolution. According to the plan, the intelligence department selected skilled and experienced intelligence cadres with expertise in cross-country travel, using compass bearings, and chose some cadres proficient in the Khmer language to form special reconnaissance teams to penetrate deep into Cambodia. Their mission was to find ways to link up with the military cadres who had defected in the eastern border region, covering the provinces of Krati and Kampong Cham. In March of 1978, I was summoned to the Reconnaissance Battalion 47 headquarters. At the battalion headquarters, Battalion Commander TNHIPHA told me HA has been selected for the Military Region Intelligence Department to reinforce the intelligence forces. He only said that without further explanation about the reason or the specific mission of reinforcing the intelligence forces. I returned to the company, said goodbye to the command team, and quickly went to Ho Chi Minh City to the Military Region Intelligence Department to receive my mission. At the Intelligence Department, Lieutenant Colonel Ngai NACLN, the chief of the department, informed me that I and some other comrades had been selected to join the intelligence force to carry out a special mission in Cambodia. I was driven by the department's vehicle to Barracks 242 on Chur NBH Tour N Street, District 5, Ho Chi Minh City. This barracks was the former intelligence base of the South Korean Army during the war against the US. After 1975, the Military Region 7 staff used it as a training center for the AI and Cambodian languages for our intelligence forces. Here I met many people who had already gathered, some I knew from previous assignments, and many I met for the first time. There were cadres from the defecting forces opposing the Pol Pot regime and Military Region 21 of the Khmer Rouge Army, who had crossed the border into Vietnam with Deputy Regiment Commander Hun Sen to seek support against the genocidal regime. The plan of the Military Region Intelligence Department was to organize a special reconnaissance force to penetrate deep into Cambodia to establish contact with the defecting armed units of the Khmer Rouge Army, organizing them into an uprising force of friends. The expected areas for potential bases and operational footholds for the defecting forces were the Memos District area north of Road 7 up to the Shlong River in Kampong Cham Province, the Khun Che area in Prey Veng Province, and the Saigon area west of Road 13 in Krati Province. We attended political education, specialized intelligence reconnaissance training, and preparatory work. After about 1 week, we were moved to the outpost of an intelligence cluster in XMBing LC Thi Commune LC Nin District Seng B Province, now being HPHC Province, on April 18, 1978. Department Chief Nai NZCL and some department cadres came to the XMBing post to assign us the mission. I was assigned to the Deep Penetration Special Reconnaissance Team named Chim N Swallow. The team command included me, Hu, and the team leader, Nejek Suensei, the political officer and party secretary, and me, the deputy team leader in charge of reconnaissance. An Huan was a Cambodian who joined the Cambodian Revolution in 1950. In 1954, he regrouped to North Vietnam and studied at the LCQN Officer School 1. After that, he served as the deputy district commander of Quan HA District, then HA Province. In 1970, after Lon Nol's coup, he returned to Cambodia and served as the deputy district commander of Memos District, Kampong Cham Province. In 1976, he was among the cadres who were purged by the Pol Pot regime and fled to Vietnam to seek refuge. After January 7, 1979, he returned to the Kampong Tom Provincial Unit, then transferred to the diplomatic sector, serving as ambassador to Hungary before retiring as a minister-level advisor to the royal government. Returning to the mission, the Khmer team had 16 cadres and soldiers organized into 3 sections: reconnaissance base building and foothold. The reconnaissance section was led by me and included 4 people: Angel from Tianjiang province, Arno Dui Dieng from Thai BNH province, Ancient Guy VNCA Cambodian via Vietnamese, living in Cambodia, who returned to Vietnam in 1970, and NHK. The base building section was led by Anshmi Hun and included comrades like STH and Peach T, who were former medics in the defecting Khmer Rouge army and fled to Vietnam with Hun Sen in 1977. Later in 2017, he was promoted to general by the Cambodian government. The foothold section was led by Ancient HXU N Se and included communication soldiers, signal officers, logistics, and medical staff to serve and guard the base. This section included HA medic from BN Tree, who was very handsome, and we often called him H-Con Little Chi. All members of the Khmer team were selected for their solid political qualities, high fighting spirit, and voluntarily registered to participate in the deep penetration mission. However, within the team, only I had previously commanded a deep penetration reconnaissance formation to monitor the enemy, while the others had only been on 1 or 2 assignments within special reconnaissance formations. The intelligence cadres had only operated in urban areas previously. Their experience in monitoring the situation and building intelligence networks was very good, but they had almost no experience in jungle and deep penetration reconnaissance. The biggest difficulty at that time was logistics, as the team had to operate for a long time, deep within enemy-controlled territory, with no base for resupply. The Pol Pot regime had abolished paper money, exchanged the commodity economy in private ownership. To overcome these difficulties, the chief of the Military Region Intelligence Department directed the team to urgently conduct supplementary training and prepare logistics and accommodation for the team for 1 month at XMB-NG. We took advantage of the time to train skills in cross-country travel, using maps and compasses under conditions of carrying weapons and equipment, learning how to detect and defuse mines, how to live secretly in enemy-controlled areas, how to approach targets, and how to handle situations. At 5 p.m. on April 20, 1978, the Khmer team set off. Accompanying us was a transport team from Reconnaissance Battalion 47, led by NAC Eng, Deputy Commander of Company, one whose mission was to carry reserve food and supplies. When they reached north of Road 7, they would hand over the supplies and then they would return to LC9. The vehicle took us to the TNT border guard post. From here we began our march on foot, crossing the border. The crossing point was a branch of the Sign River, which was at the end of the dry season, so the water was only calf deep. Department Chief Ngai NNCLN accompanied us right up to the border. He firmly shook each person's hand and just briefly said, "Try your best." In front of me, he tightly held AA's hand and entrusted him with the main responsibility of taking the bearings, cutting through the forest, and guiding the team. Our mission was to quickly cross the border section at LCTN Commune, rapidly cross Road 7 near the CI Nemos section, and then cut through the forest circling north of Road 7 to operate in the area east of the Carabao Dead-End Road, about 20 kilometers due north of Memos near the border. Here the team would conduct terrain and population surveys, prepare a secret foothold to conceal and operate the force for a long time, and continue to penetrate deeper to find traces of movement and activities of the defecting forces and the deployment of enemy troops in the area of operation. The expected contacts were the defecting groups from Military Region 20 north of Prey Veng and Military Region 21 in Memos, where Pol Pot had just carried out a bloody purge in the southwest, north, and east military regions, and Military Region 203 forcing many patriotic officers and soldiers to flee into the jungle, forming defecting units. The requirement was to strictly avoid clashes, thoroughly erase all tracks across trails and routes where people travel, maintain the secrecy of the operation's purpose. Our Khmer team was heavily equipped with M79 guns, AK submachine guns, an 81C radio battery-powered Min-Climo-type grenades, rice, dry rations, dry food, and medical supplies like a logistics unit on a long combat mission during the war against the US. The total weight carried by each person was over 30 kilograms. I was equipped with a K-54 pistol and M79 gun with 36 rounds, a 1 to 100,000 military map, a compass, and rations and personal gear. The Khmer team and the transport reconnaissance team, totaling about 30 people, kept a silent formation walking through the night. Everyone was strictly briefed to be extremely careful, not allowing backpacks and cumbersome equipment to make noise while moving through the forest. Whenever there was suspicion, we immediately stopped to check. At around 11 p.m. we crossed the oil-rich forest and began entering the old-growth forest area. Seeing that the comrades were tired, the team command held a consultation and decided for the entire team to stop and rest in place, waiting for morning to continue to the foothold position height 86. We required all sections to maintain absolute secrecy and organize tight guard duty. After checking the unit, I sat resting by a tree root and soon heard the snoring of my comrades. The jungle mosquitoes were too numerous. Even though we had buttoned up our sleeves and pants and applied mosquito repellent oil, the mosquitoes still swarmed in to bite. Partly worried about the mission and partly tormented by the jungle mosquitoes, I was nearly awake all night. Political officer Hun Say was also awake all night. Early morning on April 21st, we woke the soldiers up, arranged the formation and continued cutting through the forest to height 86. Maintaining strict marching discipline, the entire team reached the foothold position safely. The team command held a consultation and decided to temporarily stop the comrades, organizing one section for security and one section to secretly cook. The remaining force prepared for the afternoon's march to Crossroads 7. After the consultation, I led the sections to deploy according to the plan. The communication section set up the radio to contact the Military Region Intelligence Department Center. Say wrote the report, Khmer team has arrived at height 86. Morale is good. We'll march along the road at 2 p.m. this afternoon. We'll cross Road 7 tonight as planned. At 2 p.m. we continued the march as planned. I led the way, cutting through the forest. We planned to cross Road 7 at the section between Phum Kn and Phum Par K. Before leaving the sections, did not forget to thoroughly erase all tracks at the concealed position. We cut through the bamboo forest, always hidden under a wild field of tall, head-high stinking grass. According to the map, there was a clearing we had to cross. When the reconnaissance team reached the edge of the clearing, we saw many figures ahead. I ordered the formation to withdraw a few hundred meters and conceal ourselves in place. The team command and the reconnaissance section approached the target to observe. It was not a grass clearing but a field with many people working ploughing. Everyone was carrying a gun on their shoulder. Concluding that the people ploughing were Pol Pot local armed forces, we concealed ourselves in place, waiting for dark to continue the march. Part 2 of the soldier's memoir by People's Armed Forces hero Lieutenant General Triuxunha will temporarily stop here. Thank you very much for taking the time to follow. If you find it interesting, please remember to click subscribe to support the channel and follow the next parts. Once again, thank you very much and goodbye. Hello everyone, the Storytelling channel today would like to introduce to you the work Echoes from the Khmer Pass, a work by many authors including generals and former veterans who participated in the defense of the country on the northern border in 1979 when more than 60,000 Chinese troops simultaneously attacked all northern border provinces of Vietnam. We invite you to begin listening.